This is our EOC review. We're in part 2. This is a part that allows a calculator. Picking up on number 15. It says simplify 2 to the third times 2 to the fifth. We're multiplying the same bases. Notice they're both the same. They're both 2. So you keep the base the same and you add 3 to the third plus 5, which becomes 2 to the 8th power, D. 16 says 12 plus 5 times 2 squared times 14. You have to simplify it. You have to do the order of operations. Remember, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. You can look through most of these as we go when we're simplifying this. Do all your parentheses first. So parentheses means 5 times 4 is 10 squared times 14 plus 12. After parentheses, you want to do exponents. So we have exponents. We can do 10 squared is 10 times 10, which is 100. Still times 14, still plus 12. The next step is to do your multiplication and division. So multiply 100 times 14. You don't need a calculator for this. This is just move a decimal one time. 14 becomes 140. Still plus 12. Multiplication and division's done. Last one you want to do is addition and subtraction. Add 12 plus 140, 152. Hey. Number 7, it gives us coffee poundages and it gives us prices to go along with it. When you're creating an equation for this, remember your slope shows your change up and down. So that's your change of y over your change left and right. That's your change of x. So it's your change of y over your change of x. So if you're looking at your change of y, how much do we have to go up for each of these? How much do we have to go up? It's going up plus 3 each time. Plus 3. Plus 3. Each one's plus 3. So your change of y is positive 3. Your change of x, it's going up plus 1 each time. So it's over positive 1. So your m value is going to be 3 or 3 over 1. So remember, y equals mx plus b. Y equals mx plus b. Well, we'll plug our values in. Plug in your value of m in place here. So 3x. So y equals 3x plus b. We don't know what our y-intercept is, but we know that it's not just 3 because if you multiply 3 times 2 pounds, it only gives us $6, not $6.50. So it has to actually start at not 0, but it starts at 50 cents. So plus 0.5, C. 18 says, what type of relationship is depicted in the scatter plot below? And I left a lot of information off of this one because it wasn't necessary. There'll be like there'll be a bunch of numbers down here and stuff. There'll be a bunch of numbers here. There'll be a bunch of data here in the problem and here in the problem. It's not necessary to even look at all of that data. All you got to look at is the fact that as you're looking at this scatter plot, it looks like it's mostly in a straight line, even though they're on both sides of that line. They're mostly in a straight line, which makes it a linear relationship. If it were quadratic, it would look something like this. It would be what's called a parabola. If it were nonlinear, it would look like this. Like you'd have a point here, and then you'd have one here and one here. You'd have them all over the place. You can't draw a straight line through any of those. And then none of these doesn't fit any of them. Number 19 says, which one's not linear? We can graph all of these in a straight line. They're all in mx plus b form, in fact, where this is your slope and this is your y-intercept. There's no slope shown of this one, but your y-intercept is shown. If you look at y equals 8, at point 8 up here, you'd have a straight line going across. That's still a straight line. It's still linear. The other one is mx plus b. What makes the bottom one nonlinear is the fact that it's squared. That makes a quadratic function, which when you graph it, will look like this. So D is the one that's not linear. Okay, number 20, got a whole lot of writing up there, but you have two equations. F of x equals 3x plus 2, and f of x equals 3x minus 7. I'm not sure if I said it a minute ago, but anytime you see f of x, don't freak out. That just means y. I know I told y'all that as we went through the semester. That just means y equals 3x plus 2 and y equals 3x minus 7. It says, which one's true about this? As you look at b real quick, I'm going to jump down to B real quick because you see this word always right here. Always. Anytime you're doing multiple choice tests, anytime the word always or never pops up, most of the time that you can almost eliminate that answer. So we'll just circle it just for a second because you can just skip it for right now and you come back to it to make sure, just in case nothing else works. You have to choose between it being perpendicular or parallel to each other, or they intersect at the point 2, -7. It's easy to determine if they're perpendicular or parallel based on their slopes. Both of these are in y equals mx. Both of these are in y equals mx plus b form. Both of their slopes, you can see, are the number 3. Slopes that have this, lines that have the same slope, in this case they're both 3, will never cross each other because they're going up and over at the same rate. They're going up to the up and then right, or up and then left, or down and right and down left, the same rate. So these lines are parallel to each other. You don't have to look any further than that. '21 says, which one shows f of x equals -3x minus 1? Again, don't freak out. Y equals -3x minus 1, where this is m and this is b. So b tells you to begin at -1. M tells you to go down 3 and to the right 1. So that slope is negative. You can look at this one right here. It's going up a ramp. So that one's not good. That's positive slope. You can look at this one right here. It's going up a ramp. Positive slope, not good. We need a negative slope for sure. So it's going to be either A or B. A goes through at, B's value says -1. A goes through at this point here. That's -1. B goes through, it looks like at -1/2. So that's not your B value, -1. A is the only one that works in this case. '22 says the graph shows 2y equals x minus 4. It says if the coefficient y changes from 2 to 1, it actually makes this much simpler for you. Because the coefficient is 2, it changes it from 2 to 1. So instead of 2y equals x minus 4, you're changing this 2 into 1y equals x minus 4. So all that gives you is y equals x minus 4. So it made it into slope-intercept form for you. Y equals mx plus b. Again, where your m value is 1, that's not shown multiplying by y. By x. Your b value tells you where to begin, -4. So begin at -4 with your picture. You can look at this one. It begins at -2. That one doesn't work. This one begins at +1. That one doesn't work. This one's -4 and this one's -4. So we got to choose between C and D. Your slope is +1. That means and it's over 1. That means you go up 1 and to the right 1. So none of these show up 1 and to the right 1 immediately, but you have to look at them to determine that it does say it, in fact. It goes up 1 and over 1, up 1 and over 1, up 1 and over 1, up 1 and over 1. That's the one we're looking for. The other one, as you look at it, it goes up 1, 2, 3, 4 times before it goes over 1. That one's slope is 4 over 1. C is the only one that works. Okay, we have, and I'll read it like this: y equals 7x minus 1, and y equals -1 over 7x plus 14. Again, read that as y. It'll help you out. Y instead of f of x. Remember the one that says always? Anytime you see always like that, you can probably eliminate that answer. So we're choosing between parallel and perpendicular, and then we'll look at the one where they intersect after that. Look at their slopes. They're both in y equals mx plus b form, mx plus b. The first one's slope is 7, and the second one's slope is -1 over 7. Okay, they're obviously not the same slope. So since they're not the same slope, they're not parallel to each other. They have to be the same. So they might be perpendicular. That's what we're trying to decide now. Perpendicular slopes, remember, they're called negative reciprocals. And remember, all that is a fancy term that means flip it and change it. So if we have this 7 as a fraction, we would call it 7 over 1. If we flipped 7 over 1, it would become 1 over 7. Well, that's what we got here, 1 over 7. That's the first part, the reciprocal part. The other part is it has to be a negative value. So if it was positive 7 over 1, it becomes negative. It does that. Had it been -7 over 1, it would have to become positive. So it flips and it changes. It does both of them. So this one is a perpendicular set of lines. 24 says which one is not a function. We looked at function maps um, much earlier in the year. Remember, function maps look like this. They have the two bubbles. These are your x values, and these are your y values. So your x values would be 0, 1, and 2, and your y values would be -1 and -2. That's just looking at this first one here. You don't remember, you don't represent the same number twice. So we have 0, 1, and 2, and -1 and -2. You draw arrows that show the relations themselves. 0 and -1 go together. 1 and -1 go together. And 2 and -2 go together. Remember our rule that we looked at. If there's two arrows entering the same one here, it is not a function. That's how we looked at it. An easier, quicker way for you to do when it comes time to take this test is just examine all of your y values. Examine all your y's. Go down the list. If they're the same value, 4, -1, and 0, all of those are different. That's a function. 1, 0, and -1, all of those are different. That's a function. 1, 2, and -1, all of those are different. That's a function. Notice what makes the top one not a function is you have the same y value pop up twice. That makes it not a function, A. Then the last one says, what's true of all, or what is a characteristic of all linear functions? It says they must cross the y-axis in a coordinate plane. Well, let's look and see. If we have ourselves a plane that looks like this, it says they must cross the y-axis. Well, we know that this one right here is the y-axis because it gives us a big capital Y. We can have a line that is a vertical line that goes straight up and down. That will never cross the y-axis. So this isn't true of all linear equations. The second one says it must cross the x-axis. Again, this is our x-axis. We could have a line that looks like this, that's horizontal, that never crosses the x-axis. So that's not true. C says they have a variable rate of change. A synonym for the word or for the term rate of change is slope. So what you're saying is it has a variable slope. Variable means it changes from one thing to the next. As we look at our slopes of our lines, y equals mx plus b, we never plug in a variable in place of this m. Nor do we plug in a variable in place of this b. We always plug in a value like y equals 2x plus 1. It won't have a variable slope because then the line will not be straight. And then the last one says functions are undefined when x equals 0. So if x equals 0, y equals mx plus b. When x equals 0, or the change of x would probably be a better way to say that. Your change of y is your up and down over your change of x. If you have 0 at the bottom of a fraction, remember that is a no-no in math. And that's what makes it undefined. That's what it's talking about. X is 0. It is undefined.